Most people kind of land in these mid existences because they're doing what they think they should be doing rather than doing what's authentic to them.
Mike King is one of the sharpest brains in SEO, a world-class marketer and a rapper who walked away from college because a song told him the truth. But the story underneath it is far bigger than SEO or music. He grew up between worlds, Philadelphia to Connecticut, outsider to insider, the rapper who could code, the marketer who didn't fit the mold. And when the industry tried to box him in, when people made assumptions, when they reduced him to the rapper guy, he rebuilt himself again. This is the story of a man who refused to shrink, refused to fit in, and refused to dim his talent so others could feel comfortable. This is Mike King, and this is his real story.
I've been arrogant since my humble beginnings.
Yes, and I fucking love that, because you know what? I think people really believe that if you've had challenges, that you somehow should be so humble that you don't recognize what you've achieved.
I feel like humility is fake, right? Like it's people trying to like fit in and not like be too big of a personality or whatever. Like you don't show humility because you're like, oh, I feel like I'm not better than people or whatever it is. If you've achieved certain things or you have overcome certain things, you are not a regular person.
No.
And so your context and your perspective is different, but you kind of like have to make it smaller to be humble.
Yeah.
So that you don't offend other people.
Yeah.
It's never been an idea that's like resonated with me.
That's so interesting, because I, from like my early 20s, I would have theories and stuff that I would insist on sharing with everyone. And one of my most used theories that everyone that I know would listen will say, oh God, this one again. I call it the rubber band theory.
Okay.
And so, you know, when you buy a rubber band, it's really tight, it's really small.
Yeah.
And then you stretch it and it becomes bigger and bigger. I feel like people are like this with experiences.
Sure.
When you have experience or you've been through a lot, and especially if it's been trauma or difficult times, you get really stretched. But the challenge is most people aren't there. So you always have to go in, because their worst is much further in and they will just break if they try to see the perspective.
Yeah.
And I call the between the tight band and the stretch band is loneliness.
Ooh, that's real. Goes back to what I'm talking about.
Yeah. That is exactly the same thing. Because that's how I've felt so much of my life, where I know that it's unreasonable of me to ask for the perspective that I can give, but that doesn't make it any easier.
Sure. Yeah, because you live with things that people don't understand, and like your context is a very specific thing because of what you've been through. But then you have to like go back to kind of like Gen Pop and figure out ways to relate to them, rather than them trying to like step up to relate to you, because it's so foreign for them. And I would say that like so much of my life has been that, because, you know, like I was born in Philadelphia. I spent, aside from like since I've lived in New York, that's where I lived the most. And then my parents moved me to Connecticut, where I'm like a fish out of water. You know what I mean? I don't know if you guys got the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air out here, but like that's what my life was kind of like. Because I went to, you know, Connecticut is like, it used to be the highest per capita income state in America. So it's like mostly rich kids. And I went to this prep private school where like all these kids get expensive cars as soon as they get their first license and all these things. And like my parents were successful, but they had me young. So like by the time I got to high school, like they were just getting into their real success. So, you know, we weren't rich. We weren't broke or anything, but we also weren't rich. And you know, like these kids all grew up together. I didn't have that context. So I'm going to school every day feeling lonely, wishing I was around the kids I grew up with and things like that. And then also just like being one of a handful of black kids in the school, also lonely. And then all the other black kids were from the inner cities of Connecticut. I'm from the inner city of Philadelphia, which is like a very different thing. So there weren't so many people that I had that related to my experience. But to some degree, it's also prepared me for the life that I live now, right?
Yeah.
Like in the spaces I'm in now, there's not a lot of people that look like me. You get used to that kind of like isolationism, but it's never feels good to feel like you're the only person. You know what I mean?
No. And also you get kind of, I don't know about you, but I kind of got so used to being the odd one or the weird one or the different one in whatever situation that it took a long time for me to really trust people that wanted to get to know me, because I was like, are you sure?
Yeah, because to some degree it's like you feel like people want a thing from you because there's a different perspective or different challenges that you've achieved that either they haven't done or they may just be looking like figure out. So you always feel like someone wants something from you.
Yeah.
Rather than them just trying to like connect with you or they feel similar to you or things like that. And so when I find those people that like, it's really meaningful to me. You know what I mean? And, you know, you're one of those people, right? Like, I feel like, you know, obviously we have very different experiences in life, but a lot of the things you say, I'm like, yeah, that's exactly how I feel about that thing.
Yeah.
So it's cool when you find like similar people in that way.
Yeah. I always talk to my kids about that stuff where they were like, oh, they struggle with friendships or whatever. I'm like, look, there will come a time where you will meet your people.
Yeah.
But it's so important just to stay true to yourself. I think both me and you are people that will stay true to ourselves. And that's quite intimidating to a lot of people.
Yeah.
So you also get a lot of haters from simply just being okay with being who you are.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, it's like a freedom that I think you and I have that a lot of people don't. And then they kind of look at us like, oh, well, why did they get to be themselves? Like, why did I have to acclimate to all the things around me? I mean, you didn't. You just did. Like, you decided to do that. So I think that, you know, people just don't, if they can't understand something, it's easy to hate it.
Yeah.
And then you have the people that are kind of like the opposite, that are like, oh, I want to be more like you. And that is, it's a big responsibility to have. You know what I mean? Because it's like, then you're like, am I living up to the version of me that you think I am? And then you're like, wait, that doesn't matter either. And you just got to kind of let that go. But there are definitely a lot of people are probably disappointed because they thought I would, like the snapshot they saw of me is not who I am. Yeah. And you become mindful of it the more that they kind of like project that on you, but then it's just another thing. Yeah. You gotta let go.
I remember first time we like properly chatted, like we'd known each other in the industry for ages. And you said to me, "You seems really nice. I thought you were really scary." And I thought it was so weird. Like, what? You thought I was me scary? But it's the thing is that you never realize how other people perceive you. Yeah. And I had like, when I did stand-up comedy for like 2 years. And I remember the first kind of like few weeks of the comedy course, and they were talking about how important it is to know how you perceived when you go on stage so that you know where to pitch different. And I thought like I had a really good idea how I was perceived. And everyone on my course was like, no, that's not it. And I was like, what? Like, man, do I not come across as like really like sweet and like innocent? And they were like, no. And I was like, oh, what do I come across as? They're like, you seem authoritative immediately. And I'm like, no, what? Do I? Yeah. And then I realized that matters a lot. When and I suppose that's one of the biggest challenges for me, at least. That's been a really big challenge to realize that how I come across is quite different from who I am. Sure. And then I remember in my 20s, there was a lot of weird theories in the 20s. I used to be really worried that getting to know me was like you ordered champagne and instead you got baby champ, which is like this really shitty, like a cheaper.
So you're not living up to the expectation. Yeah. And again, that's what I was saying, right? Like, because people, they assume you are whoever they think you are.
Yeah.
And then it becomes clear that you are not meeting that expectation. But, you know, at the end of the day, you got to be authentic to you, like whatever that is.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the kind of the reason I call my consultancy EKTE, because that means authentic, real in Norwegian. And I think that's the thing that I have kind of journeyed throughout life. And it hasn't been a case of like being authentic because I felt comfortable to it. It's been literally the journey to being okay with myself being who I am.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the journey we're all on, right? Like, and I think, you know, for people like me and you kind of get there earlier than other people, because you kind of realize like something in how the world functions doesn't really make sense. You know, so many people are like, how do I fulfill what other people think? And you watch that over and over. That's how what do we say? Like, it's Cancun.
It's Cancun.
Yeah, like that's how everybody ends up. Like, all right, what we said was like how Cancun is. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's not great, but it is a vacation. You know, you can do things or whatever. So it's real mid, as you would say.
Yeah.
And I feel like most people kind of land in these mid existences because they're doing what they think they should be doing, rather than doing what's authentic to them.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think a lot of the experiences that I had young where, you know, like I was uprooted and I was like, I never want to feel like I can't be in the place I want to be in. And that kind of cascades into other experiences where it's like, I want to be doing what I want to do with every single day of my life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Otherwise, it's like, why are you living for other people?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you know, you also have kids, so you got to live for other people to some degree. But you still have your goals, the things you want to achieve, and you should not like compromise on that just to make someone else happy or comfortable.
So how did you come to this? So I think a lot of people would be interested to know, like, did you have a moment, like, was there a time in your childhood or teens or anything that you felt more aware of who you really are?
I think I was always aware that I was different from most people. But, you know, specifically in college, I had this moment. I was listening to this song. There's a rapper by the name of A$AP Rock, and he has a song called No Regrets.
Yeah.
And on that song, it's just like the story about this little girl who she just like sits outside and she draws, you know, art on the street, like literally chalk art. And then as the story progresses, she becomes like this artist, and that's all she does. She has friends, she has a boyfriend, whatever. Her boyfriend's also an artist. They hang out like 2 days a week, and that's kind of that. And then at the end of the story, she just like, she dies. But she dies happy. She dies empty because she spent the whole experience doing exactly what she wanted to do. And listening to that song at like, I don't know, 21 was really profound for me. And I was like, why am I in school? I don't want to be doing this. I want to rap. And so that was like the precursor to me no longer going to school and rapping instead. Oh. And that was such a risk in a variety of ways. Because one, like, I'm meant to be, you know, a real successful person, because my parents were like the first big successes in their respective families. I'm also, you know, like, who knows, is this rap thing gonna work out? You know what I mean? But it just felt like the authentic thing for me to do. And I think a lot of my decisions in life, especially since then, have been in that way. Like, what is it that truly represents me that I want to be doing in the world? And it's kind of like my litmus test for most things, you know, and a lot of times they're not the right things, or at least they're not the things that are going to yield the easiest path to success or whatever it is, but it's the thing that feels most right to me. And I think that's like kind of my North Star. Yeah,
that really makes sense. And that's, so you were 21. Was that university or?
Yeah.
So you dropped out or?
Yeah.
You finished, yeah.
Yeah.
Me too. Hey! Of course, all the cool ones.
And I mean, that's another reason why it's a risk. Like, I was an honor student,
wow.
I studied computer science.
That was a big risk.
Yeah.
I was shit, so it wasn't really risky at all.
I mean, I wasn't always an honor student, but I was an honor student. And, the thing about school, though, was that I didn't feel like I was learning a lot because I've been coding since I was 12. And I was... 12? Yeah, I was like a bored
What year
kid.
was that? Was that...
93.
Oh my God. Dear. Colon. //
Yeah. Command lines, all that. So, I didn't feel like I was learning much in school. I was learning math.
Yeah.
But as far as like the thing I really wanted to do, I already knew what they were teaching me.
Yeah.
And, it was great for like meeting girls in my classes that were struggling. But beyond that, I was like, I just want to rap. Like, that's the thing where I'm really growing as a person.
Yeah.
And, I feel like I'm accomplishing things. And so, it was definitely a risk. But ultimately, all the things that I do now are a function of the things that I learned from that career. Like, I never took a marketing class.
No.
I'm considered a world-class marketer. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And that's all because, like, I had to figure out how do I sell CDs to people that don't want CDs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Amazing.
So,
well, hang on. What how did the SEO journey start then?
So, it was 2006. I got into a bike accident and I didn't have health insurance.
Oh, shit.
So I had to pay my medical bills, and the first place to hire me was an SEO agency. And they were like, oh yeah, you can code, you can figure this out. And it's very much like an SEO chop shop. Like, we had 6 people that did the work, and we had like 40 people on the sales team. So like, we had... And this is,
typical 2006.
Yeah, of course. It was a company called SEO Matrix.
Oh,
and,
wow.
When I've like Googled it, more recently, I've seen thought leaders that I know now talking about that company and how bad it was. And anyway, but I had no idea. I was just like, okay, well, and I got there, and my manager, he like wasn't answering the phone. And then ultimately he got fired, and they made me the manager. Cause like I work really hard at anything I do. Like, I just have a really strong work ethic. And I also only intended to keep that job for like 3 months because I was about to go on my first European tour in November of that year, and I started the job in August. So I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to leave this place better than I found it. But then they made me the production manager. First thing I did is just start answering the phone, because we had like, let's call it, we had like 100 clients or something like that across 6 people. Because it was early. It was early. And we had brands of all sizes. Like, we had some enterprise brands. We had some local. It was like random. And this is before you just like did deliverables about SEO. Like, they would just give us the keys to the FTP, and we would change the site and then upload it back. And that was that. And anyway, so I started answering the phone, and people would tell me their problems, and I would listen, and I'd be like, cool, let's fix it. And it like turned around the business, you know what I mean? And it like, I was not qualified to be doing any of this, you know what I mean? Like, I was qualified to do SEO because they showed me how to do it. And SEO in 2006 was very fucking easy.
I remember.
You know I mean?
I started 2006 as well.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the fuck is this? This is really easy.
We were like bolding keywords and copy.
Yeah.
And, making things H1s and the page titles were just the list of keywords with commas. And the extent of
pipe. I preferred the pipe.
And then the extent of link building was like typing in the keyword plus add link, and then you just drop the links. I was like, sure, I can do this, And so I basically kept that job until the owner pissed me off. And I was like, fuck this. I'm going to just go back on tour. And that's what I did. And then, I got another job at a company that does like basement waterproofing, and they made products. So they had all these like different franchises. And so my job was to build websites and generate leads. And I got that job. And here's the thing. I didn't know anything about the SEO community until like 2011. So I didn't know there were like other people doing this. Yeah. I didn't know that there was like blogs, none of this. So I was like reinventing the wheel. Yeah. Right. So there's a rapper, his name is Cannabis, and he had this song. It was called Poet Laureate Infinity. And the way it was, like, the song was like on the web with the interface, and he had 8 versions of the verse, but every version rhymed with the other version. So you could turn off one version and turn the other one on. So effectively you had an infinite verse. I was like, yo, I could do that with content. So I reinvented article spinning without knowing that was a thing.
No way.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so like I was coming up with things that the community had without me knowing about the community. And so I kept that job for a while. And then I got a job at Razorfish.
Oh, yeah. That's when I think I first met you. Were you at Razorfish then?
I don't think so. I think I might have been at Publicis when I met you.
Oh, okay.
But the two are connected. So, like, I was just a contractor at Razorfish. They just gave me 24 hours a week. So I just sandwiched those from, Tuesday to Thursday. And then I would keep doing shows on the long weekends. And a friend of mine, like one of my best friends, his name is Daniel Music. And we used to tour together. And we were, like, on a train in Sweden one day. He's like, hey, Mike, I know you're doing the SEO thing. My cousin owns a software company in Seattle. I'm like, who's your cousin? Oh, yeah, his name is Rand Fishkin. I'm like, what? And because I never put it together like that Rand's mom's last name is Music. My friend's last name is also Music.
Oh.
And they actually kind of look alike. And I remember looking at the SEO Moz at the time website and being like, huh, that's weird. That woman kind of looks like Dose. And anyway, so he told me that. And then I reached out to Rand and I was like, hey, I know your cousin. I do SEO. What do you think for someone like me that's trying to get involved? And he was like, don't start blogging. That doesn't work. Like,
oh my God, he said the same thing to me.
Yeah. He was like, there's too many people blogging.
Yes.
That'll never do anything. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, cool. Nice to meet you, And then I met Rand and Geraldine at a Moz event in New York. And, I was just like, hey, I'm the guy that knows your cousin. And, I think I spent more time talking to Geraldine because he's done a lot for me. But yeah, and then what ended up happening is I started blogging. But wait, hold on. So I was at Razorfish in Philly. Razorfish is owned by Publicis.
Oh, yeah.
And for whatever reason, they didn't want to hire me. And the reason why they didn't want to hire me was largely because I had experience doing SEO, not writing about SEO. So they considered me more junior. But the team I was on quickly realized, like, hey, this guy knows how to do things. And a lot of it turned into them asking me questions on how to do what they were doing. So it was always kind of weird,
Yeah.
And I was also, like, building tools there and so on. When they had, like, a whole software team that works like any other software team where it's like you ask them for a feature and it's going to take 3 months.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, I would build something that day. Anyway, the whole point was I really wanted that job long term, but they still couldn't hire me. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go to another Publicis agency, get an offer, bring it back, and they'll have to hire me. And so I did that, and they still couldn't. So I was like, cool, well, I'm moving to New York.
Yeah. Oh.
And then
That's when you moved to New York?
Yeah, so this is like 2011. And then I worked at Publicis Modem, which is effectively like an ad agency. And I was the only SEO person. So it was a whole bunch of situations where like something's about to go out the next day and they're like, hey, Mike, press the SEO button. I'm like, hey, that's not how any of this works.
That is such a good big dumb.
Yeah. And, so it was actually a good experience because I had a really good manager, this guy named Tony Effick, who's from the UK, moved over. And, he's like one of the only people I've ever reported to that challenged me and like recognized, how intelligent and what I brought to the table was. And a lot of my early innovations that I brought into the space were from collaborations I did with him. So like the whole persona modeling for SEO, like that was the first thing that I was talking about. And we worked pretty heavily on that. But yeah, I was there and then I'd gone to my first MOSCON. Publicis wouldn't pay to send me, so I just like spent my own money on it. And, that was like where I really got some FaceTime with Rand. And I just started writing for the Moz blog and all my stuff was like popular and it would go to the main blog and all that. And so I was like, I have to go. Like, these are the people I interact with all the time. And it was such a good investment for me because I met all these people. Rand invited me to be like a Moz associate. They tried to hire me after this. And, I was at MOSCON like, wow, this is so cool. And then I saw Will Reynolds speak, and I was like, oh shit, they let black people do this? And literally, while he was on stage, I submitted for SMX East in the following November, because this is July, or maybe October, whatever it was. And I got it, and then that kind of like kicked off the cascade where I was speaking everywhere and all that. Then what ended up happening was I came to this realization that my life in this industry was way cooler than my life at work. Like I had this industry that was like, oh wow, these are all great ideas. Let's start doing this.
Yeah.
But at work, no one wanted to do any of the things. And I was like, okay.
This is network.
Yeah, this is stupid. Like, why am I here? And then I kind of started this whole like bidding war for every agency in New York. And also interviewed at Moz. They wanted to hire me in this role called Marketing Oracle, where the goal was Rand would stop doing things like Whiteboard Friday and all that sort of stuff so he could focus on like working on the business. And then I would be the public face of Moz. But they wanted me to move to Seattle. And I just moved to New York. And I'm like, Seattle's cool. It's not New York City, though. You know? So what ultimately ended up happening was... I went to an agency called iAcquire, which I didn't really know much about, but they came to me, recruited me, and basically offered me the same role that Rand was offering me, but I could stay in New York. So they wanted me to be the face of the business. They were like, if you want to build software, like all the cool stuff I wanted to do, they were like, cool, just do it. And what I didn't know about them is that they were just like a link selling firm. Because like the way they explained it to me, they were like, yeah, we do content marketing. I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
Everyone else knew about them because they were buying links from them, but I didn't.
I think I know. Well, what they call?
iAcquire.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I joined them, and like at that point I was really popping in the SEO space. I was kind of like this new, golden kid with all these good ideas and whatever, and everyone loved me. And what happened was somebody wrote like this expose on iAcquire. So like one of our link builders or buyers or whatever you want to call them reached out to this person, this blogger, and was like, hey, I'd like to buy a link on your site. Person didn't want to sell the link, but they wanted to like research the company that was trying to buy a link from them. And he did this whole article on it and all this research, like uncovering all the, phantom sites that were being used for the outreach, like the whole thing, and publishes this blog post about it. And of course, Google reacts, de-indexes us. Yeah. And the thing was, a lot of people thought I owned this company.
Oh, because you were the face of it.
Yeah, because I was just like going all over the place, promoting it and whatever. And so that was the first experience of like broad backlash that I had, where all these people were saying all these crazy things about me, like how I'm a scammer and all this. And I'm like, yo, I had nothing to do with any of this. Yeah. So, and at the same time, the guys that owned that company kind of like left me out to dry, like where I couldn't say what I wanted to say, which, as you know me, like that's very difficult. It's like the worst thing, right? Yeah. And they also weren't listening to me about what is the strategy to like get beyond this crisis. They're like, well, you're just a marketer. You're not a crisis PR person. I'm like, well, that may be true, but I know that you don't just sit there and don't say anything. Yeah. You know what I mean? So that really put a stain on that relationship for me. And ultimately, that didn't work out like long term. So then I was like, okay, I should start my own agency. But then I didn't. I was like, I don't know if I'm ready yet. So I went and worked at another agency for like 4 months. And they kept trying to get me to do things I didn't agree with. Like they had this software platform that made no sense at all. Because they were like trying to reverse engineer not provided, which you can't do. There's no reliable way to do that. And they're like, yeah, well, we got all this data science and da-da-da. I'm like, yo, I do not want my name anywhere near this. Like in my interview with the CEO, we had an argument where I was like, this is dumb and here's why. And I don't know, maybe she liked the fact that there was pushback, but we continued to have pushback through the whole relationship. Like it wasn't a one-time thing. No. And ultimately what broke it was, there was two things. one, we had a guy on the team. It was like his 2-year anniversary. I was like, cool, I'm going to take the team out. We'll go bowling, something like benign, simple, cheap. And the guy was like, nah, I don't do that. Like the president of the organization. I'm like, the fuck you mean don't do that? Like that's part of how you build a culture with the team and so on. He's like, well, no, don't do that because then you got to do that for everyone's anniversary. Why is that a problem? Yeah. So anyway, I just took him out and paid for it myself. Like I didn't have the company pay for it.
Oh, that would have made them look even worse.
Yeah. I don't think I told anybody, but you know.
But that also, yeah, well done.
Yeah. So I did that. So he's mad at me about that. And then there was they had like a sponsored session at SES or whatever in New York. And I was like, I don't do sponsored sessions. Like sponsored sessions are the things that no one pays attention to. Yeah. And he's like, oh, no. He thought I was kidding. He's like, oh, no, you'll do that. I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. And then the time comes and I sent, my direct report to go do it instead. Like you thought I wasn't serious. I'm not doing this shit. So yeah, that didn't work out.
Oh, I love that.
And at that point, I was like, well, I got enough money saved up that if I don't sell a thing for the rest of the year, at least I won't be homeless. Yeah. And then what happened was I announced I was on my own and I got 2 clients like immediately. And then I got an office and then I was like working with all these contractors and then I was like, well, I guess I have an agency now. I should probably hire some people. And that was 2014. And here we go.
It's mental, isn't it? Yeah. How suddenly you go from, but I wonder if that's the thing. Like I think it might have been one of Malcolm Gladwell's books that had this chapter about what would be the indication that someone would do well, and they had all these questions that they did over several years and whatever, and all this data. And it turned out the only thing that had a correlation whether someone was successful later was the question, what browser do you use? And the reason it had a relevance is because the people that answered back then, like Firefox or anything else but Internet Explorer, etc., they had looked for something better. Right. They weren't okay with just
the default.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the thing. It's like people, I mean, you were always going to be entrepreneurs because you end up pissing people off because it's not, and people want, they want people to challenge, but they don't want it to challenge too much. Yeah. So you end up being completely unmanageable and then having to manage it yourself.
Yeah. I mean, and
hallelujah.
It's also that you have a very clear idea or opinion of how things should be. And it's difficult to do that in someone else's thing. Yeah. And even if you can do it, you don't have control over it. Like that person may be like, I don't like that today. Yeah. And you need to be the person that's saying, I don't like that today.
Yes. And this is such a good point. Actually, one of the things, when I set up Verve in 2009, one of the questions that everyone had was like, why don't you set it up with, at that point, my ex-husband, or with someone else? I'm like, I know for sure I cannot co-found or run a business with someone equally because so much of what I know is like a intuition or like I just know I think we should do this and I go really fast. Yeah. I haven't got fucking time to explain to someone that I have like a spidery feeling and for them to like believe it. I was like, that is the only way I can do it is if I do it myself so that I can go, well, we fucking do it now.
Yeah, but that's also very lonely, as you say, right? Because when it gets challenging, like it all falls on you. Yeah. And so when I look out at other people that have like partnerships and things, I'm like, oh, that's probably so much easier. Yeah. But things wouldn't be the way I wanted them that way. Yeah.
I'm going to tell you a story about this. So okay. I did used to tell this to the Verve team. They hate this story. You know how geese fly in like a V? When things were difficult, I always used to say like, look, geese usually takes turns about going in the front. But I always compare us to like, we're the goose in the front. You know, it might be much harder against the wind, but at least we're not looking at someone's ass.
Nice.
And I think that's kind of the same as like, I would rather, like for me, there's so much that joy or so much like energy I get from being able to make a decision and go for it. And I really do find it's really hard to do things to always be on your own. But once I found my COO, Rebecca Bex, I always want to say it with the Australian accent, it totally changed. And although she wasn't a co-founder, I did find that in her. But I still think I would struggle to run a business with someone.
Yeah, I mean, there are people that, you know, I think they call them like entrepreneurs, like people that take ownership in that way, but they don't want the responsibility of owning a business. Those are the people that really help people like us make it happen. And I have one of those at iPullRank, this woman, Cammie. She's amazing. She, you know, does a great job of taking the thing I want and then turning into something real. Yeah. So, you know, building this business, I had to come up with the ideas and make them real. But now it's like, I more just have ideas. Yeah. Like my job now really is far more marketing and sales than it is anything else. And it's always been that. But now it's like, I don't have to worry about the minutia as much. I still have to weigh in. I still have to like direct things. But it's not just my responsibility to make things happen. And that's when everything just becomes far more manageable. Yeah. And it's way less like so often I've felt like I'm just doing a scheme. And then like, it's like, oh, that one didn't work. Okay, what's the next one? And you got to like keep going until you land on something that works. Now you have like thought partners and people that are like, okay, I'll take this part and I'll take this part. And then it's bigger than you. Like I'm at a space where, let's say like a bunch of my people quit. I can't just do it all myself anymore. For a long time, it was like, you know what? If y'all all go, I can handle this. But now it's too big for me. And that's ultimately what you want. You want something that's like a living thing beyond what you came with. And you want people that contribute to it to make it better than what you could do by yourself.
Oh, absolutely. Like that is so true. And for me at Verve, I used to be like really like strict on people saying we instead of I, because like there's no one that's dispensable. Like you need everyone. Like everyone contributes, and it's so much. And it's so good when everyone kind of works well together. But as we know, it doesn't always work like fuck. But the thing is the hard bit though.
The thing that I struggle with is that, you know, there are people in this world that are working on sending rocket ships to space and then bringing them back to the ground intact. We are not doing that.
No, that's so true.
We're making decks and writing content and, you know, doing outreach. Like, it's not that hard.
No.
And people make it sound like it's the hardest thing they've ever done in their life. And that's where I can't relate to it, because building this business was way harder than doing the work of the business.
Yeah.
So when people don't get the part that they own and take that ownership, I really struggle with that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, you're going to have to manage that person and figure it out, because I don't have the patience for what they're doing.
I know this, but this is also a very common thing with entrepreneur CEOs, though, is that because you usually come from doing the thing yourself and the ideas and whatever, it is like, I just don't understand how people work when they don't care about what they're doing. And like when people are like, well, it's just a job. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yo, even when I had a job I didn't like, I still wanted to do my best.
Yeah.
Like I still wanted to, you know, contribute things that they didn't have, or find something of interest to me that could allow me to really shine. So I can't relate to someone who's like, oh, I'm just gonna look at the process document, do exactly that, clock out at 5 o'clock, and like, that's it. Like, I can't wrap my head around that. But the reality is that most people are like that. And, you know, when I would hire people, I would obviously looking at from my perspective of like, you know, I'm not inherently special. Like, I'm not smarter than anyone. I just get temporarily obsessed with things. You know,
temporarily obsessed. I love that.
Yeah, no, that's what it is, right?
Oh, like, that should be a t-shirt. Temporarily obsessed.
Nah, but
that sounds like an ADHD t-shirt.
But like, I go so deep on things, and I want to read everything. I want to understand how it works. I want to like build a thing. I want to like really understand things from a granular perspective. And then like that's over. But now I have that knowledge forever, and I like just keep building on that. So in anything I do, it's like that. You know what I mean? Like from music to business to SEO to code, like any of those things, I just want to deeply understand it. And so it doesn't compute for me when someone's like, okay, well, there's no process document, I can't do something. The fuck do you mean?
Just figure it out.
Word. Like, just figure it the fuck out. Like, it's not that hard.
Yeah.
We're not like, you know, doing brain surgery. We are like putting data in spreadsheets and then copy and pasting it into fucking PowerPoints. Like, it's not that hard, right? So, you know, and there are some more technical things, obviously, but even with that, it's like you're doing something technical to build a spreadsheet and then make a PowerPoint. Yeah. Like, it's not that hard. So it's really difficult for me to deal with people like that, but it's also the curse of knowledge. Like, I get it. 'Cause, you know, I remember like first time someone sat me down to like show me Excel formulas, I was like, oh, okay. I see that this was a big gap for me. You know?
Yes, exactly.
And then once I got that like initial thing, I was like, oh, okay, I need to know everything about how this works. So then I learned like VBA and all these sorts of things. Oh my God. Yeah, like, I go hard because I want to know everything I need to know to be able to do what I do as well as I can do it. And yeah, most people don't have that gene. They're just like, how can I do the least to maintain this job so I can maintain my mid-ass life and get my mortgage and whatever. But for me, I'm like, I want to do the best thing possible if I'm doing it.
I am the same. And it is a bit of a curse because you do a comedy course and 2 years later, you're still fucking doing comedy and you're like, what the fuck am I doing? I was like, I just want to do a course. And then I was like, well, I think I could get better. Let me do a couple of more gigs. Let's start a comedy club. Fuck. And so it can get me in such like a weird direction. Yeah. About the time when I was starting the stand-up comedy, I was supposed to start an applied neuroscience degree. And my friends were like, what are you doing? I'm like, squirrel. But it was interesting. And so that's the thing. For a mind that is interested, when something is interesting, it's really hard to let it go.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the story of my life too, right? And the thing is, like, once you become so capable, you're like, oh, yeah, I can just do that. But then that turns into like 40 different unfinished projects. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because you're like, oh, yeah, I can just do this myself. And you're so hype about it in that moment. And that may last for like 2 weeks. And you get like 60-70% through something. And then you're like, wait, there's something that is a much higher priority that I got to work on. And then you go through the cycle again when you find something new that's exciting and you get that to 60-70% and then it just kind of sits there. Yeah. So I definitely have a graveyard of great ideas. And then sometimes I come back to one and I'm like, ooh, let me finish that. But then there are the things you got to do that like keep the lights on, right? So that's me with blogging. I'll sit down, and if you've ever read one of my blog posts, which I don't necessarily recommend because they're always super long.
Yeah, no, I've read loads of them.
And because, again, that's like a result of that temporary obsession where I'm like, I want to learn everything about this, and then I'm so excited about it that I want to share everything about it, too. So that's why every blog post I've ever written is like, 30 pages long.
Could be a book.
Yeah, word.
Yeah, but that's the thing. That's also why they're referenced so much and why they do so well, because it's really like you've thought of everything within it. Yeah, and that's what you have to do for writing a good article and not just a.
Yeah, that's why it's so ironic that Rand said to me, of all people, you shouldn't blog. Like, if anything, I was the person that needed to blog.
Yeah, but it's funny. Like, this was 2007 when I first came across SEO Moss and stuff, and he said the same to me, and I was like, nah, I'm gonna do it anyway. And then I started SEO Chicks, just mostly to piss people off, to be honest. Because I had so many weird comments about like, do you actually know anything about SEO? I'm like, and so I got so unpopular on that SMX Seattle 2007 or 2007 because I made these t-shirts that were bright green and just said SEO ticks just over the boobs. And all these American female SEOs were like, oh, that's really derogatory. I'm like, I know, that's the fucking point. It's sarcastic, innit? They were just really mad. I'm like, well, it doesn't matter to me whether they think I'm just an SEO chick. It is what I write. That's the point. And the whole point of that blog.
Shit the whole time. Yeah.
So I was like, that to me is like one of those things that I can never resist saying the thing that they're thinking and then showing them I'm totally fine with thinking it just to piss them off.
Yeah. Yeah, you're taking back your agency in the situation.
Exactly. So you've been running your agency since 2014.
Yeah.
And so it's been 10 years.
11,
sorry. What year is it? And now you kind of revived your music interest?
Yeah,
Tell me.
So I actually put out a record in 2021, mid-pandemic when everyone's like, I'm in the house, I should do some stuff. And with me, when I stopped going to school, I was like, well, I can only be a rapper till I'm 40. And I was like, I certainly need to put something out again before I turn 40. So I put out a EP. It was called Iconic. And we literally dropped it 11:59 p.m. the day before my birthday.
Oh, cool.
And, it was my first record in like 9 years. And I got some people on it that are like, reasonably famous, like Music Soul Child, Little Fame from a group called MOP. And I was just doing a lot of like experiments with it. I was like, okay, what does it mean to promote a record in 2021? Because things have changed dramatically, right? Like it used to be heavily about traditional media. Now it's just, online media, which is what I do every day. So I'm like, all right, let's play around with this. And, it resonated with a lot of people. Like we did some good numbers with it. I did videos for a lot of the songs. It was just fun. And it was also a process of rediscovery because I'm like, what do I even rap about at this point? Because before, a lot of my themes were like, about women that I was having relationships with and struggling and all these sorts of things. Because, like just trying to figure out where your success is as a 20 whatever year old. And now it's like, I don't have those problems, like I'm reasonably successful. And so just discovering how I rhyme now was a whole process in and of itself. So did that. And then, just kind of left it where it was. I did some shows here and there and everything. But I threw my first conference this year, SEO Week. And we had Busta Rhymes perform at the after party.
That was so sick.
Yeah.
I can't believe you got that. That is how to do a conference the first time.
Yeah. And so we did that. And I also performed. And the crowd really loved me, but obviously it's like a lot of people that knew me from SEO. And it was, I even said it on stage. I was like, yeah, see, a bunch of y'all were like, yeah, I like Mike King. I might need a favor from him at some point. I'm going to go to his little show. And then you showed up and found out I can really fucking rap.
Yeah, amazing.
And so I had this moment where I was like, I don't want to be this old still having to like win over crowds. Like I want to show up and people know that I'm dope and at least have like one or two songs of mine that they love. So, like when you go see somebody that's like a one-hit wonder and you're like, yeah, I love that one song. Let's see what else they got. And I was like, okay, well, that's what I need. I need a hit record. And so I reached out to my network and I was like, who can we get? And so I got connected with Scott Storch and, he's done all these records for like Beyonce and Justin Timberlake and all these sorts of people. And so I went down to his house in Miami and we just started like, cooking up a track. And then I went again, we made another one. So now I'm just trying to see like, how far can I take this? Because making a platinum record just means at this point that you got 1.5 billion streams on Spotify or across the different channels. 1.5 billion.
Fuck, that's not...
I mean, it's not that many though,
No, because it counts every time.
Right, every time somebody listens to a song.
Yeah, okay.
So like, if you do it, let's say it even takes like 10 years to get there, that's not that hard.
No.
You know what I mean? It's no different than like getting views to a website.
That's true. Well,
So
I don't think anyone would listen to something I howled. But yeah, okay, sorry, back to...
yeah, but my point is like that is something that we can figure out and we can
Yeah.
optimize toward and so on. So it's a fun new challenge that's like the confluence of all things that I like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's
So,
your Ikigai.
It's my what?
Ikigai.
What does that mean?
So Ikigai is a Japanese concept of how the thing that you are good at, the thing that contributes to the world that you can get paid for, and all of that comes together in the Ikigai of the middle of the Venn diagram
Yeah.
of things that really...
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, that's badass.
Yeah, so now I'm just like, cool, let's make that happen.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've made a few records I really like. And it's also like elevating how I want to make music moving forward. So I'm like, I don't want to do anything that nobody hears.
Yeah.
You know, I want to run it like a major record label would. And we've had those labels as clients. So I see what they can and can't do.
Yeah.
I know what their playbook looks like. There's no reason we can't do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just an exciting thing that, you know.
What's the label called?
My label?
Yeah.
Firm Language.
Firm Language.
Yeah.
And the album, when is it a single you're releasing each time?
So basically I'm going to be dropping something every month in 2026. And I'll have a project per quarter. But there'll be enough songs on each project that it'll seem like a song has come out every month.
Oh, cool.
And that's one of the things for like the Spotify algorithm. It rewards consistency. So you can't just like drop a song out of nowhere unless you're gonna put like a few $1 million into it. Instead, you gotta like consistently drop things, and then people's algorithmic playlist will feature you on it.
Yeah.
And so it creates that cascade of people listening to you. So I'm going to get started. You know, I think the first record we're dropping is late November, early December. And then the big records come out in January, and then we'll just keep dropping stuff.
Oh, that's going to be so cool. Yeah. And also, what does it feel like now to go back to rapping and doing music? I guess you've been doing it in the background anyway.
Yeah,
or?
I mean, I wasn't like actively like, oh, let me put out records, but like a lot of my friends would come to me like, hey, jump on this, or come do this show, or do this tour with us, or whatever. And so I wasn't saying no to that stuff. It just was like kind of in the background. Yeah. Also, I will say this: there was for a long time I wasn't comfortable sharing my music stuff in the business environment, because there was like a bias against me because of it, right? Like there was this one time at that last agency I was working with, we had one of those like big hotel companies or whatever, and the president of the agency was on the phone with the woman, and he was like, oh yeah, I'm super excited. Like I just hired Mike King. He's great. And the woman was like, oh, the rapper guy? I don't want to work with him.
What?
Right. And like I was the executive director of owned media, so all of SEO reported to me, but she didn't want to work with me. So like, you know, there's no knowing how many things I didn't get opportunities for because of that. And so for a long time I wasn't speaking up about it. But then with that last record I put out in 2021, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna share this shit. You know what I mean? Like I put it up on my LinkedIn, and I had this whole message about like why I didn't share before, and people were really encouraging. And I think one of the markers of true success are when you can be fully yourself in whatever space you want to be in. So I think I'm like in that space now where it's like, you know what? I rap. Yeah. Who gives a fuck? You know what I'm saying? Like you don't have to listen to it, but you do know that if you come to me, you're going to get great results for marketing, SEO, or whatever. Yeah. None of how you feel about the fact that I make music is going to change that.
No.
So if you don't want to work with me because of that, that's actually me having a good filter. Yes,
that's so true. That really speaks to me. I had, when I was doing comedy, I'd been doing comedy for 2 years, and the guys at the agency Hackers asked me to do the comedy night that they had, which was merging those two worlds. I even had a stage name for my comedy.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I didn't know you weren't doing it under your regular name.
No. Who can fucking say my regular name? Lisa Paasche is Paasche. But I hesitated whether to do it. And then I was like, no, fuck it. Look, I think I've earned the right to be as flawed and complex and brilliant and layered as, and why shouldn't you be a badass businesswoman and a comedian telling jokes about fingering? Yeah. Why is that not okay? Although I was quite nervous about it. And to be fair, when I then kind of came back into working in business again, and I went to one of the agency hackers conference things, there were a lot of people that were like, I think I met you somewhere before. I'm like, no, don't know what you're talking about. Like,
that's my alter ego.
Yeah, exactly. But one of the things that really struck me as you were talking now was maybe a month ago, I had a podcast about my story of my childhood go live, and I was freaking the fuck out. Yeah. And no one was replying to me. I sent it to my best friend in Norway, in here, and no one had watched it, and I was really freaking out. For some bizarre reason that I now realize isn't that bizarre, I reached out to you, and I was like, I'm freaking out. I don't know what to do. And it's going to be shared, and should I share my Instagram? Is this going to be, and you just said exactly the right thing. You said, and it was the quickest someone had been able to calm me down. But I now realize it's because there's a lot of similarities there, and you were like, you have to just let it out. Yeah. Like, whoever will judge it will judge it, but that has got nothing to do with you.
Exactly.
And I just, thank you so much for that. Like, I've told so many people, I was like, Mike gave me the best advice ever.
I was just reflecting you back to you.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for that. Yeah. But I can see now how many similarities with that. But I am so glad that you're bringing those worlds together. Yeah. Because also, I realize there's so many people that also feel weird or different or like don't fit in. That might be watching or listening to this and realize that you can do whatever you want to if you
literally can do whatever you want at any time. Like, you actually don't even need to get to the level of achievement that we have so that we can feel comfortable with it. You can just do it.
Just do it.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Like, I think to some degree, me not feeling comfortable was me kind of like believing what other people were saying. You know what I mean? And then me just realizing, like, actually none of this matters.
No.
And I think I behaved in the way that I wanted to anyway. Like, I still was sharing the music with the people that I thought it would resonate with. But that feeling like, oh, I gotta hide this. For what?
Yeah.
Why do these people's opinions matter? They don't. I made them matter for that moment, and now I'm able to just let it go.
Yeah. And that is so true. Once you come into that, there's such a liberation of running out of fucks to give. Isn't it? Yeah. It is just like, oh, fuck it, I haven't got energy. Not that I have much of fucks to give in the first place, which most people will know. But it is more for yourself, isn't it? When you realize that it's okay. Like, and also, why can you only be good at one thing? Why can't we? Yeah.
Yeah, that's another idea that people would like drill into me. So, with hip hop, I used to do everything. I used to do graffiti, I used to break dance, I used to DJ, and I got really caught up in this idea that you can only be good at one of those. And what I was best at was rapping. So I was like, cool, let me double down on that. But I know plenty of people that do all four of those things really well. And, I feel like, I don't know, maybe I was never going to be better at those things than I was, but I don't like the fact that I gave up on them. You know what I mean? Because there was no reason to. Yeah. But that is so much of the common knowledge or understanding that people share. Like, you can only be good at one thing at a time. And that's 100% not true for me. Yeah, no, me either. In fact, like, I would die of boredom if I didn't at least try to be good at more than one thing. Yeah. Yeah, and you know, I've always been that way. Like when I was younger, my first dream was to be a cartoonist. So I used to draw like comic books and things like that. Yeah, and then I wanted to make video games, which was part of why I learned how to code. And so then I started rhyming, and if you were to watch me as a kid, like in my room, I'd just be bouncing back and forth between those three things. Like I would be writing a rhyme and I'd be like, I don't feel like doing this. Okay, let me draw a comic book. Let me make a character for my game instead. And it would just be this like continuous cycle. And I would just like kind of whatever I felt like doing in the moment, that's what I would do. But what's bad about that is you don't really generate the discipline for what you need to achieve things in real life. And so when we talk about me having, you know, that graveyard of projects, it's a function of me being like, I don't feel like doing this. I want to do that. But in the work environment, you got to just do it until it's done. You know? There's also kind of this like false perception that I'll have when I'm working on something that I don't feel like doing, that it's not as good just because I don't feel like doing it. But then I'll go back to it. I'm like, what were you talking about? This is amazing. Yeah. So I wish if I had one thing that I could change, it would be that. Because then I could just like keep doing things until they were done.
I also think that maybe it's not the time yet for that thing. Because I also have like so many projects of things that I've done and that are nearly finished and whatever. But then I remember my mentor, after I sold Omnicom, that was a really good positive thing about that. They paid for a mentor and I'd never had one. And this lady, Margaret Heffernan, who's absolutely fucking badass, amazing. She gave me some like really good advice. And she said, sometimes you just have to, you know, if you have an idea, just wait for a bit. If it's still haunting you after a few months, then go back to it. Yeah. And that's so true, because some of my ideas, you really don't like that could go really badly if I went full on and finished that. So some are not really meant to be finished and some are not right now. Yeah. So that's also okay.
I agree with that.
But what would you say is the thing that you now know that is the kind of classic thing of what did you wish you knew in your early 20s?
The only thing that I would probably want to have done different is been more open to connecting with people when I was that young. Because for me at that point, like the context of my life was mostly music, and I was really elitist about rap. Like, if you didn't rap as good as a certain baseline of skill, I just hated you as a person. And I was very vocal about that too. Yeah. And, you know, I wish that I would have like looked to connect with people first. Yeah. Rather than just like think about their talent first. Yeah. Because, you know, I think I would have had much different relationships, and those would have allow me to learn faster, like be more open to other people's perspectives, and be more involved in things that I kind of like locked myself out of by hating people because I didn't think they rap good. And you know, rapping good is also just like a moving goalpost too, right? Like there's like types of rap that I like now that I would not have liked at that time. And even so, those rappers that I hated then, I like more now. So it's like you're cutting yourself off to their growth by just looking at who they are right now or what they do right now. And also, you know, a lot of what I would consider bad rappers are really cool people. Yeah. So I just wish I would have understood that better. I think I got that more by the time I came into the business side. And so there are people who, you know, their work doesn't impress me, but I like them a lot as a person. Yeah. And there's been a lot that I've learned from them, or a lot of great relationships that I have as a result of that. Or there's just like people I don't agree with. Yeah. That I also like as a person.
That's like, so important.
Like Barry Adams. He and I, we disagree all the time. Like we were on a virtual webinar together today or yesterday. I don't know. Time isn't real. But he was actively disagreeing with me, and then we're backstage just like chopping it up, like, yo, I love you, dude, it's good to see you, like,
Yeah,
that sort of
exactly.
stuff, you know what I mean?
But that's real respect, though, having different opinions and still being okay with having different opinions.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's being mature, really, but like, you know, younger me would probably have just hated that guy forever, just because we have differing opinions on something that actually doesn't even matter that much, you know?
Yeah.
So being able to grow and have the space for that, like, I wish I was able to do that at a younger age.
Yeah. Same. Yeah. That was amazing. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
This is fun.
This was so good.